They tell you that you need $1.5 million, or you are destined to live in poverty. They tell you to follow rigid mathematical rules that keep you terrified of spending your own money. They want you grinding away at a job you tolerate, hoarding cash you are too afraid to touch just to hit an arbitrary finish line. But what if the math is completely wrong? What if I told you that millions of everyday retirees are living perfectly comfortable, full lives today with less than $500,000 in the bank? The secret to their peace of mind is not a bigger nest egg. It is abandoning the conventional withdrawal myth entirely. Let us talk about the massive disconnect happening in American finance right now. If you run your numbers through any standard online retirement calculator, it will sarcastically flash a red warning sign telling you that you need $1.5 to $2 million to safely stop working. But if you log off and look at the real world, the numbers tell a completely different story. According to a recent National Institute on Retirement Security report, the median retirement savings for the entire working population is exactly $955. And even the lucky ones who actually have a 401k through their employer, their median balance is just $40,000. Instead of looking at the people struggling, look at the people succeeding. Go down to your local coffee shop at 10 in the morning on a Tuesday. Look at the retirees tending their gardens or booking modest road trips. A massive chunk of these genuinely happy, relaxed people have significantly less than $500,000 to their name. They are not stressed. They are not anxiously checking their stock portfolios on their phones every 5 minutes. They are entirely free. So how on earth are they thriving while the calculators say they should be bankrupt? The reason you are terrified of running out of money comes down to a fundamental flaw in how we are taught to spend it. Enter the legendary 4% rule. This rule dictates that if you have a portfolio split between stocks and bonds, you can safely withdraw 4% in year 1, adjust it for inflation every year after, and your money is virtually guaranteed to last 30 years. That sounds complicated, but simply put, it means if you have $500,000, you are allowed to spend exactly $20,000 a year from it. Period. No matter what happens. But here is why this rule is an absolute trap for the average American. The 4% rule was designed in the 1990s to survive the absolute worst-case economic scenarios in modern history, like retiring on the eve of the Great Depression or the stagflation of the 1970s. It is an algorithm, not a financial plan. It assumes you are an emotionless robot who will blindly pull the exact same amount of money from your account whether the stock market is booming or whether the global economy is actively crashing. Think of the 4% rule like a set-it-and-forget-it thermostat in your house. It is programmed to pump out 72 degrees of heat every single day. That thermostat does not care if it is a sunny 85-degree day in July or if there is a brutal blizzard outside in January. It just blindly runs the program. Real life is not a blind thermostat. If a massive market crash drops your 401k by 20%, are you really going to mechanically withdraw the exact same amount of cash to go on a luxury cruise? Of course not. You are a human being. You naturally tighten your belt. You wait for things to recover. Because the 4% rule assumes you never adapt to your surroundings, it forces you to hoard a massive mountain of cash just to survive a theoretical worst-case scenario that you would actively avoid in real life anyway. This brings us to the core shift that makes retiring on less than $500,000 completely viable for the middle class. It is called dynamic spending. That sounds like a corporate buzzword, but simply put, it means spending more when the economy is good and scaling back when the economy is bad. You put flexible guardrails on your lifestyle. Let us look at how smart retirees actually do this. Imagine someone with $400,000 in savings. In a year where the market shoots up 10%, they see their account balance grow by $40,000, and they feel incredibly comfortable pulling out $25,000 for daily life and maybe an extra trip to see the grandkids. If the market crashes the next year, they do not mechanically pull out another $25,000 plus inflation just because a spreadsheet told them to. They naturally pull back. They skip the kitchen remodel, choose to drive instead of flying, and eat at home a bit more. This natural human flexibility completely breaks the math of rigid withdrawal rules. For a lot of people, the biggest risk is not running out of money at age 95. The biggest risk is underspending for 3 decades, living like a miser, deferring every dream you ever had, and for a lot of people, the biggest risk is not running out of money at age 95. The biggest risk is underspending for 3 decades, living like a miser, deferring every dream you ever had, and dying with a giant pile of cash you never got to enjoy. Most everyday retirees gladly trade a perfectly optimized spreadsheet for the reality of enjoying their money while they still have the health and the energy to actually do it. But flexibility alone is not how you survive on $500,000. You also have to realize that your investments are not meant to carry the full weight of your lifestyle. They're only funding the gap. Let us talk about the absolute bedrock of this whole system, which is Social Security. People cynically claim Social Security is a bankrupt Ponzi scheme, but those checks clear every single month for over 60 million Americans. Thanks to recent cost of living adjustments, the average check for a retired worker is sitting at roughly $2,079 a month. For a married household, factoring in spousal benefits, you could easily be looking at $3,000 to $4,000 a month in guaranteed, inflation-adjusted income. That is a steady baseline that does not care if tech stocks crash or who is sitting in the Oval Office. Think about what $3,500 a month actually covers for a retiree whose house is either paid off or who refinanced into a historically cheap mortgage years ago. It covers property taxes, utilities, groceries, and basic medical insurance. The absolute necessities are completely handled, so that $500,000 nest egg, it's no longer a desperate lifeline for your daily survival. It's no longer keeping the lights on. It becomes the buffer. It is the fund, for home repairs, and for the extras. This creates a Social Security first mindset. The modern approach for the middle class is maximizing that guaranteed benefit to create an unbreakable floor. If you can wait until age 67, or even age 70 if possible, you drastically reduce how much you have to rely on your own volatile savings. Here's the other major piece of the puzzle that nobody in traditional finance talks about. Modern retirement is no longer a hard stop. The days of working 40 hours a week for 40 years, getting a gold watch from a boss who barely knows your name, and then never working again are completely over. Today, retirement is a transition. Millions of retirees are taking on side hustles, consulting gigs, or part-time work, and they are not doing it because they're destitute or desperate. They are doing it because going from 100 miles an hour in your career to absolute zero is terrible for your mental health. People want to stay engaged. They want a reason to get out of the house and socialize. Bringing in just $1,500 a month doing something you actually enjoy completely changes the math of your entire life. If you make $18,000 a year part-time working at a local garden center or doing freelance consulting, that replaces the income you would otherwise need to withdraw from your investments. It is the exact mathematical equivalent of having an extra $450,000 sitting in a 4% rule portfolio. Let that sink in for a second. A casual, low-stress, part-time job completely replaces the need for an extra $500,000 in the bank. You do not need to grind for another miserable decade at a stressful corporate job just to hit a fake calculator target. You just need a supplemental income stream that you actually enjoy doing. How do you transition out of that terrifying accumulation phase and step into a lifestyle phase where you actually live? It comes down to 3 extremely specific, actionable steps. You must abandon generic financial advice and get incredibly tactical. Step 1 is the essential versus discretionary split. You must categorize your budget to know exactly what can be ruthlessly cut during a stock market dip. Do not just write down food on your spreadsheet. You need to separate the baseline groceries from the $15 cocktails and separate the essential utility bills from the expensive gym memberships. When the market drops 20%, you freeze those discretionary items so you never sell your investments at a loss. If you know your absolute baseline survival number, a market crash becomes a minor inconvenience instead of a life-ruining panic attack.
Step 2 is the Social Security timing analysis. Do not just blindly take the money at age 62 because you're tired of working and want out. You need to calculate the sweet spot for your personal life expectancy. If you were in great health, delaying your benefit until age 70 gives you an 8% guaranteed return on your payout for every single year you wait after your full retirement age.
You cannot get a guaranteed 8% return anywhere else without taking on massive risk. By maximizing that baseline floor of income, your $500,000 portfolio gets to stretch decades longer because it is doing significantly less heavy lifting. Step 3 is the bucket method. If you have $500,000, do not just dump it all into a massive pile of volatile index funds and cross your fingers hoping the market stays up. You need to divide that money into 3 distinct buckets based on time. Bucket 1 is your cash bucket. This holds exactly 2 years of your expected portfolio spending. This money is sitting in high-yield savings accounts or short-term treasuries. It does not grow very much, but it never goes down. Bucket 2 is your intermediate bucket for years 3 through 7 of your retirement. This money is in safer corporate bonds and stable dividend-paying stocks. It provides a steady drip of income to constantly refill your cash bucket. Bucket 3 is your growth bucket. This money is meant for a decade from now, which is where your aggressive index funds and broader stock market investments live. That sounds complicated, but simply put, it means if the stock market crashes tomorrow, you literally do not care. You are not touching your stock money for 8 years anyway. You are simply living off the cash bucket while the market takes its sweet time to recover. When the market panics, your reaction is absolute boredom. Your groceries and utility bills for the next 24 months are completely insulated in cash. You have bought yourself the most valuable asset in finance: time. This eliminates the panic selling that ruins most middle-class retirement plans. Let us bring all of this together, because this is where the math finally meets your actual life. The conventional retirement narrative is built on making you feel small, unprepared, and dependent on massive numbers. They want you chained to a desk chasing $1.5 million out of pure fear. But when you step back and look at the mechanics of dynamic spending, maximizing your Social Security floor, and utilizing the bucket method to insulate yourself from market crashes, the illusion shatters. Retirement is not a finish line where you collapse exhausted into a pile of money. It is a state of transition. You do not need to be a millionaire to be wealthy. You just need to be more flexible than the rigid formulas the industry tries to sell you. You do not need a golden mountain of cash to live a golden life. By pivoting away from terrifying algorithms and embracing your own human adaptability, you regain the autonomy and the peace of mind that financial planning was supposed to provide in the first place. So here is your practical next step. Stop looking at the panicked averages pushed by calculators that do not know you. Close the spreadsheet that assumes you are a robot. Sit down this week and calculate exactly what your baseline survival number is and see how close Social Security comes to covering it. Once you realize your investments only need to cover the gap, $500,000 transforms from a terrifyingly small number into a powerful tool that is more than enough to buy back your freedom. Subscribe for more deep dives into the math behind a life well lived.